On the lush green savanna of the Masai Mara Reserve, nature operates on its own terms, majestic, ruthless, but full of emotion. And it was here, on a seemingly peaceful morning, that a story unfolded, one that touches the deepest parts of the heart. The sun over the Masai Mara has never been so brilliant. Soft golden light poured over the tall grass, gently swaying with the early morning breeze, carrying the scent of damp earth and vibrant life. On a small hill near the edge of the Pride, two lion cubs, only a few months old, were playing. They were brothers, inseparable, with sandy-colored fur, big innocent eyes, and movements that were still endearingly clumsy. In that peaceful moment, a shimmering yellow butterfly appeared. Its wings were delicate, fluttering in the air like tiny sparks of fire against the blue sky. The light reflecting off its vibrant wings immediately captured the attention of the two brothers. Without hesitation, they both stood up, their small bodies filled with excitement. They began to chase it, their tiny paws thumping softly on the dry ground. The butterfly danced ahead, sometimes low, sometimes high, like a little fairy leading the way. The two cubs followed eagerly past clumps of grass and around low bushes, wandering farther and farther from the Pride without even realizing it. The chase led them to a large acacia tree where cool shadow stretched out like a welcome mat. Exhausted from their run, the smaller of the two cubs plopped down to rest, its little pink tongue lolling out. The other cub remained standing, its curious eyes scanning the area, searching for the fairy that had disappeared. Its face was filled with the pure excitement of a child who had just experienced a grand adventure. But beneath the thick grass by the acacia's base, a hidden danger stirred. A massive African rock python, its body as thick as a log, had been waiting there for a long time. It was silent, cold, its eyes glinting with a faint reflection of the light. It was injured, hungry, and desperate after a previous battle with a hyena pack. A small, isolated, innocent prey seemed like a gift from fate. With a surprising burst of speed for such a large creature, the python shot out of the bushes. The scene unfolded in a flash. The resting cub, tired and unaware, had no chance to react. The python's wide mouth clamped down on its small shoulder, while its body coiled and tightened around the cub like a living steel cable. The cub's terrified shriek echoed across the savannah. Dry grass flew into the air in a life-or-death struggle. The other cub, the little brother, could only stand there, his whole body trembling, not understanding what was happening. Its innocent eyes were wide with shock, watching its brother's desperate struggle. The python squeezed harder. The cub's tiny chest began to convulse from the lack of air. Its once clear eyes were now filled with fear and pain. It clawed weakly at the python's slick body, but its claws found no purchase. Was this just a simple act of survival? A python that usually hunts at night, striking in broad daylight. Perhaps it was an act of desperation. It had been injured in an earlier battle with hyenas, was starving, and backed into a corner. A small, isolated prey. It seemed like the easiest choice for it at that moment. The painful cries continued to echo on the wind. It seemed like no one would hear, but someone did. From a distance, a man heard the faint cries of distress. He was on patrol, but the strange sound made him stop. He knew it wasn't the familiar roar of an adult lion. It was the cry of panic of a life in danger. He turned his patrol vehicle and drove toward the source of the sound. Arlo, a young local ranger, was on a solo patrol near the eastern edge of the reserve. He always paid attention to the smallest changes on the savannah, strange noises, unusual footprints, sudden silences. And this time, that heart-wrenching cry made him stop. He knew it wasn't the familiar roar of an adult lion, but the cry of panic of a small life in danger. As he drove, Arlo prepared his rescue gear. He carried a high-pressure water sprayer and a long, specialized stick. Tools that, though simple, were incredibly effective in situations like this. When he arrived, he saw a haunting sight. The huge rock python was tightly coiled around the cub, whose head was nearly still. The brother cub stood nearby, eyes wide and legs trembling, utterly helpless. Arlo's heart skipped a beat. The situation was too dangerous. A second of hesitation could mean death. Arlo saw that the python was constricting so tightly that the cub's ribs could break at any moment, while its brother could only stand there, shaking and powerless. There was no time to think or hesitate. Arlo acted immediately. He knew he couldn't get close and try to pull the python off with his bare hands. That would provoke the snake to retaliate and could lead it to attack him or tighten its grip even more, harming the cub further. Arlo quickly used the high-pressure water sprayer, the kind he often carried to scare away dangerous wildlife, aiming directly at the python's head. A strong jet of water shot out with surprising force. Startled, the python lifted its head, loosening its coils for a brief moment. It shook its head violently, seemingly confused and agitated by the unexpected spray. That was the golden opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment, Arlo moved in, not with haste, but with calm and experience. He used the long, specialized stick to pry the coils loose one by one, starting from the part nearest the python's head. It was an incredibly delicate job requiring absolute concentration. He knew that if he applied too much force, he could break the cub's bones or cause the snake to lash out. Sweat beaded on his brow, and his eyes were intensely focused as he patiently untangled each coil as if he were opening a box holding a life. The python's muscles were taut, constricting with all their might. Arlo had to use all his strength and skill to loosen each coil a little at a time. Finally, after what seemed like a hopeless effort, he got the last coil off. The cub fell to the ground, twitching slightly. Arlo's heart clenched. He knelt down, gently stroking the cub's matted fur. It was breathing with difficulty, but it was breathing. It seemed that even after a trip to the brink of death, life still clung to it. In that moment, Arlo wasn't thinking about the danger he had just faced. He just felt an immense sense of relief. He had done it. He had saved a life. Immediately, Arlo scooped up the cub and placed it on a soft stretcher using a wet cloth to cover its wounds. He radioed for backup and quickly took the cub to the nearest rescue center. At the center, the vet diagnosed it with bruised ribs and several deep contusions. But fortunately, its life was not in danger. The miracle was that the little heart was still beating strongly in its chest after its battle with death. For many weeks afterward, the cub was treated and rehabilitated at the center. Under the care of the specialized team, its wounds slowly healed and the light gradually returned to its eyes. It even began to walk and play with the staff. The little brother cub, meanwhile, was monitored by the patrol team and helped to find its way back to the pride, where the mother lion was still crying out for her lost cub. The reunion of the two, though not witnessed, was an important part of the story for the rescue team. A mother never forgets the cry of her child. When the time came, a special vehicle took the recovered cub back to the reserve. The door opened in the middle of the grass, and it stepped out, lifted its head, and took a deep breath of the familiar wild air. It had been many weeks since it last breathed this free wild air. It didn't run immediately, but just stood there listening. It was searching for something. It was searching for a familiar voice. In the midst of the vast savannah, the recovered cub slowly walked through the tall grass. A gentle wind blew, carrying the scent of grass, earth, and family. From a distance, a pride of lions appeared. In it, the mother lion, with a majestic posture and anxious eyes, stood up, letting out a low, familiar rumble. It wasn't an angry or warning roar. It was the call of motherhood, the call the cub had been waiting for all along. Without hesitation, the cub rushed towards its mother. They intertwined, nuzzling in her thick fur. The little brother cub ran from behind, jumping onto its back as if they had never been separated. In that moment, there were no more desperate cries or angry growls, only the warm, whole feeling of family. In the distance, Arlo stood on his patrol vehicle, watching the reunion. He didn't come closer, didn't intrude. It was a moment of nature, and he was just its silent protector. He had fulfilled his duty. He had intervened, saving a life. But in the end, he respected and let nature complete the story. In that moment, the savannah wind blew again gently, freely, and full of promise. The wind carried the story of a battle, of despair, of courage, and of a miraculous reunion. The story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's always hope. And that sometimes the greatest thing we can do is help a small creature find its way back home.